Yeah, I'm going to put just really quickly in the chat here. Obviously I'm going to give a lot of great information today and try to just provide a ton of value. And thank you, Daniel, for inviting me in to talk about this. But I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of you that probably have maybe some follow-up questions or want some follow-up resources. And so I just put into the chat right now both my email address and my website. And so obviously I'm not giving away my email to just everyone. I definitely want to provide value though today for you guys. And because this is an exclusive group and because Daniel has become a friend of mine, I'd like to reward all of his coworkers and friends as well. So excited to chat today. I know there's a lot of people on here and I don't think I have access to be able to mute everyone, but if you guys can just to start this off, just make sure that your mics are muted so that there's no background noise. And we'll go ahead and get started. But I've never used this platform, by the way, so I hope I know I'm going to be able to share my screen okay. But if I have any issues, I'm sure you guys can jump in. But anyway, my name is Kyle Stanley. My kind of brand, I guess you can say, is the Fearless Investor. You can find me at fearlesskyle.com is our website, on Instagram at fearlesskyle. I've been doing short-term rentals since really 2015, when I saw it as a way to be able to make money out of my own house, where I was doing basically a room out of my house. And then in 2019, I got into real estate. I was flipping houses, and I basically got to the point where I was like, hey, let's go ahead and see if we can turn this Airbnb thing into an actual real estate investment, not just a room out of my house. And so I bought a house that I was going to do if you're familiar with the BRRRR method, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat, which is a great method for real estate investors. I looked at the numbers. I'm here in Fresno, California, by the way. Here in Fresno, I was looking at the numbers and I was like, as a regular rental, I might make about $600 a month with this. But as an Airbnb, I started looking at the numbers and I was like, I could make $2,000 a month. And sure, I have to, put in the furnishing, but $2,000 a month is about 3.5 times as much as I would make with a regular rental. So let's give this thing a shot. And so as I continued to try this out, a lot of people here in Fresno were like, you're crazy. No one wants to come to Fresno. Why would you do an Airbnb? And sure enough, we open it up month one. I make that $2,000, right around that $2,000 that I was expecting. And since then, I've just been going down the rabbit hole of learning, educating myself, and implementing all these things that I am going to share with you today. And so today we manage both properties that we own and properties for other people that we're right around 60 units between Fresno, Bass Lake, and then Phoenix and Scottsdale, Arizona. So if any of you are looking at the end of this to find properties in any of those markets and you need someone to help you with managing, yes, we do that. But today I want to really give you the power to be able to manage these yourself and show you what you can be looking at for a good Airbnb. Plus, at the end, I know this is more investment related, so I'm going to keep it as much along the lines of investing and really buying the properties. But I'm going to share with you at the end the opportunity to do kind of like what I'm doing, which is doing Airbnb without owning the property, which is why I've been able to move so quickly from basically 0 to 60 units in under 3 years. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. I think I'm going to do this correctly. So it looks like it's sharing now. So if you guys are not seeing my screen, you should see a notebook right now up, a blue screen that says $10,000 per month passive income with Airbnb. If you're not seeing that, please go ahead and unmute yourself and let me know now. But everyone should see that now. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about how to get to $10,000 of passive income every single month with an Airbnb portfolio. And the first question I want to answer, and some of you might have already seen this presentation, but it'll be a good reminder for you, is why Airbnb? And so there's a number of reasons why. First of all, it's a sexy way to travel. Everyone is traveling and they're looking for Airbnbs. I'm not sure if you guys heard, but Vegas is opening back up for short-term rentals. For a while there, they had shut down, and it was mainly because the hotel industry had said, hey, we don't like this. Vegas is driven by the hotels and the resorts, and that's what's driving our economy. So you need to be, helping us out over here. And basically, all these guests that were coming into Vegas said, I don't want to stay at a hotel where it's smoky and it's got a bunch of people. And especially during COVID, where I'm worried about touching, common places. I want to stay in an Airbnb. I want to have a private experience. And so the market is talking, and they are all saying the same thing. I want to stay in a home with privacy. And that is the sexy way that they're traveling, because again, hotels are crowded and full of germs, just like what I mentioned there. And people don't want to deal with people, or people do want to deal with people. They don't necessarily want to deal with companies. They don't want to call a front desk and get a person that's going by a set of rules. They want to talk to a one-on-one host who either owns that property or is treating that property as if they own it and cares about bringing a 5-star experience every single time. It's just a better way to travel. And the best part about this, though, you can make 3 to 5 times as much with a short-term rental as you can with a long-term rental. And just like I mentioned, that very first property that I got did exactly that, about 3.5 times as much as a regular rental. And the market really, as you look across the nation, it's becoming tougher and tougher to cash flow with a long-term rental, with real estate prices going through the roof. Some locations, the rental income has gone up as well, but a lot of places, the rental income has not kept up with the real estate prices. So for that reason, it's really difficult to cash flow or to find an investment property unless you're doing an Airbnb or a short-term rental. And so let's now talk about what the 3 traits of a great Airbnb really look like. The very first one is location. So number one, absolutely no doubt about it, safety. If you or your spouse would not walk that street with your kids or with your dog at night, you should not be doing an Airbnb there. It's just, you can get away with some. I mean, I'll be completely honest. I got a couple in my portfolio that don't fit this. However, it's going to attract a lower end crowd. You're just going to have issues with people that, leave the place dirty or, are stealing things. And for that reason, I would just say stay out of bad neighborhoods all in general. Define if you want a need market versus a want market. So for example, the beaches in California are a want market. That's a vacation destination. People want to go there. They want to have a vacation there. They save up all year, or they reward themselves once a month by going on a beach vacation. Versus like where I'm at, Fresno, California, people come here because they need to come here. There's no one saying I'm going on a tropical vacation to Fresno, California. And for those of you that know Fresno, you're probably getting a chuckle out of that. But they come here because they have either business to attend to, they have families that they are going to come see, family members that are going to come see. Maybe it's a wedding, maybe it's a reunion, things of that nature. And then every once in a while, you get the person that says, hey, I want to go to the national parks and I want to use Fresno as kind of my affordable, close place that I'm going to stay. So a lot of people are staying in my area that need to. And what's great about that, and both of these have their pros and cons. The pro of having a vacation market is you're going to make great money during the hot seasons and then not so great money during the slow seasons. That's going to be the downside, or maybe even the COVID infested seasons if we have a shutdown. The positives about a need market are that it's going to be consistent. It's not going to do this, crazy Six Flags roller coaster up and down kind of thing. It's going to be really consistent, but it's also not going to make you in an entire year probably the same as a vacation area, as long as there's no COVID shutdowns going on. And then I would also say near landmarks. One of the biggest things that I've noticed in most of our places that we have been up and running is that the places near the water, near that main highway, central to the area, near the airport, near that attraction that's bringing people to the area, those are the ones that get booked up first. And then during the busy seasons, all the other ones still get booked up. But during the slow seasons, those ones with the attractions, the landmarks that are next to landmarks, they're still getting booked out pretty regularly. So that makes for a really good investment. So along that same topic here, so we just went into location. Now let's talk about size. And yes, size matters when it comes to Airbnbs. So I would say across the board, the majority of the time is if you have 3 or more bedrooms, 2 or more bathrooms, you're probably doing a really, you probably have the best fit for an Airbnb. Now, this is the rule, and there are exceptions to the rule for sure. For example, in a beach town, you might actually be better off with the 1 and 2 bedroom places because you're getting a lot more couples that are coming every single week versus large families that might not go and travel every single week because of school. So those would be the exceptions. But the rule to me is 3 bedroom, 2 bath or bigger. You're probably doing pretty well. An extra room, any extra sort of room or space for extra beds is going to help you as well. So if I've got a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, most people think, okay, great, that fits 6 people. I see a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and I say that fits at least 10 people. I've got 1 or 2 sleeper sofas, and I've definitely got a nice air mattress as well that feels like a really good mattress, and I can fit those extra people. And what's great about that in Airbnb is that you can charge extra for the people that are coming in. And what's really great for the guest is that instead of them having to book 2 or 3 hotel rooms, they're booking 1 Airbnb and maybe paying an extra $20 or $30 per night for those extra guests. So they still save money. They get that bargain and you get the extra income. And then a bonus is open spaces, larger lots, great curb appeal, nice backyards. Those are all great traits in terms of size for an Airbnb, because if I have a 3 bedroom, 2 bath that's 1,200 square feet and it looks a little cramped in the pictures versus a 3 bedroom, 2 bath that's 2,000 square feet and it's got these high ceilings, it's got this large living room, large master, open space, it just subconsciously, someone sees that and they just feel more comfortable as they're going through the booking process of looking at your home. So, and we can go into a couple examples here. Just for example, this one is a really great property of ours that you can see just from the get-go, right? You've got, and you can kind of see it here, large open spaces here. You've got the living room, which opens into the open dining area, and then it goes into what you can see, the kitchen there. Nothing in these photos looks cramped. Even the kitchen, although it's not huge, it's definitely not a small kitchen. And then I hope you notice too, these nice professional photos. Professional photos are going to make a huge difference compared to compared to the competition. Again, large spaces. This queen size bed is not cramped up against the walls. It's got a lot of area. We even added in a desk here for our guests. So this is just a really good example of what a nice Airbnb would look like. Walk-in closet. Again, look at the open spaces here so that we're not having to feel like, man, as soon as we walk into the room, we're having to shimmy over to one side of the room or the other. So that's just some examples. And then the third trait I would say is the amenities. So one thing that's great about Airbnb, we can kind of compare this to like apartment complexes. So you always hear about being able to force appreciation in apartment complexes by doing a little bit of renovations and upping the rent. Well, in Airbnb, we can force appreciation on our nightly rate by having great amenities. So here's some of the options. For example, a pool or a hot tub, depending on what market you're in, can make a huge difference on the nightly rate. Having a garage gives people that sense, once again, of safety, of being able to put their cars in at night, not knowing where they're at is going to give them that, they're probably going to spend that extra $20, $30, $40 per night to know that they have that safe feeling. Workout equipment. We've noticed recently, especially like Peloton bikes for those busy traveling professionals that are going to come into town for 1 or 2 weeks at a time. They're not going to go get a gym membership. So you might as well provide them with something right up front to where they don't have to worry about going and running outside or having to leave their house in order to get a great workout. Just give it to them right there. A makeup station, especially like we have some places I mentioned in Scottsdale and Phoenix, a makeup station is really great because you get a lot of bachelorette parties coming in. You get a lot of people coming in to have a wedding and they need a spot to get ready for that event. Outdoor hangouts, fire pits, string lights, and having the barbecue area. These are all great ways to be able to add value and not break the bank. Really nice furniture. That same property I just showed you on our listing, one of the great things about it is that the owners had see these sleep number beds, and they actually put the sleep number beds in there. I'd never really seen sleep number beds in an Airbnb, but I said, hey, let's see what happens. Well, they're getting about an extra $40 per night. And for a place that we only expected to get $160 per night, it's now getting about $200 a night and is very well booked. And I attribute a lot of that to the sleep number beds, because people know they're going to get some of the best sleep of their life when they come to that Airbnb. And then themed Airbnbs, I'll give you a really good example. We've got one actually, I'll show you it here. It was on the last one I didn't get a chance to show. This one is really cool. It's a nautical theme. So we call it the Nautical Escape. As you can see, great reviews here, but it's got the pool, you know, obviously. So looks like a paradise type of pool out here. But the greater thing about this whole Airbnb experience is that we have put a lot of like sailor type of things. If you can see this table right here, I'm not sure if all of you can see that, but it's got a like boat steering wheel right there. We've got a boat plate on the coffee table, and we gave it this very like under the sea kind of feel, if you will. And yeah, there it is right there for you. So theming them. And again, this is actually a small 4-bedroom, 2-bath. It's only 1,200 square feet. And because of the pool and the theme, it gets about an extra $50 per night compared to if it didn't have the pool or the themed Airbnb. So those are the top 3 traits. But, you know, of course, if you get that property, you have 2 choices then at that point. You can either hand it off to a manager or you can go and do it yourself. So what we're going to talk about is the tools right now that you can use to be able to really do this on your own. So the AirDNA software that is out there is like the MLS of Airbnb. So what you can do with AirDNA is you can actually look on AirDNA, look at some like properties in the area and see what they're making on a nightly basis and what their occupancy is. So you can actually find out what are these properties making in my neighborhood or close to my neighborhood, and then you can go out and duplicate what those properties are doing. I also have a profit calculator. If you go to my website, right there on the homepage of the website, in fact, I'll just go ahead and pull it up so you guys can see it here. But if you go to fearlesskyle.com, and on the homepage, you're going to see, give it a second here, load up. Get your first Airbnb in the next 30 days. If you fill out this information, I'll just do it really quickly. info@fearlesskyle.com. Watch now. In this masterclass that it will take you to, it will also have, pause that. It will have this download the Airbnb profit calculator. And when you have this calculator, you can actually start to input a lot of numbers that you're finding from AirDNA to figure out what is your net income at the end of the month and what you can expect to make month over month. So pretty cool to match both of those together and find out what you could make. And then I also have a market eval kit, which is also my website. If you go to my website and go under the Airbnb tab, you'll find the market eval kit. It's going to show you how to evaluate your market, master the AirDNA and property analysis with the profit calculator, and then use all my formulas and tools to help you find your net earnings. So that's a really cool product as well. If you want to go check that out, again, it's just on my website under the Airbnb tab. So that can help you to find the property. Now let's talk about the day-to-day management like I was talking about. So number one, you could hire a manager. A manager is going to typically charge you about 20 to 25% of the gross amount. So if you collect $5,000 on Airbnb, then typically you're going to pay that manager to make it 100% passive for you, about $1,000 to $1,250. All right. At the end of the day, pretty worth it, because if you try to do it on your own and you don't know what you're doing, that's the asterisk, and you don't know what you're doing, you'll probably end up making less because you don't know what you're doing, and you'll end up doing more of the work. So it kind of combats each other. But do your homework. Make sure to check in and see, does this person have any reviews or any great references? Do they have a website? Do they look professional? Or is this just going to be, you know, a stay-at-home someone who is kind of trying to pick this up as a hobby? That's not what you want. You also, on the flip side, don't want a huge company There's ones out there like Evolve and Turnkey, Vacasa, that grab up hundreds of properties at a time, and they don't provide the one-on-one and close communication and relationship type of service like a management company like mine will do. And a good one will make it 100% passive for you. For example, I know companies out there will charge you only 10%, but they'll tell you, hey, you still need to hire the cleaners and manage the schedules and hire the handymen. And at the end of the day, you know, all they're really doing is guest communication and pricing some things for you. And that's probably, once you get the hang of it, the easiest part of the business. And then, like I mentioned, avoid the big companies because they will likely take a lot of the money and not provide you with the service that you're looking for. And again, more mom and pop shops, kind of like what I was talking about. We have about per what's it called? Per market, we're at about 40 as our max on our markets, and that allows us to be able to be really one-on-one with our owners. All right, but the other one is self-managed, and that's what I really want to focus on right now. Is if you want to get this going on your own and keep most of the income, minus cleaning expenses, maintenance expenses, utilities, of course, all that good stuff. But you got to find a team. And what does a good team look like? It looks like basically a team of cleaners, a few maintenance men, probably a designer, an interior designer, so that you can, you know, be at your job at Intel every day and not be worrying about, okay, you know, how do I manage setting up an Airbnb while also doing my full-time job? That can be a lot of work. But the biggest one that I would say is boots on the ground, so that, again, you can focus on your main job. Meanwhile, if a guest needs something, it's 2 p.m. in the middle of the day, you can call up your boots on the ground person and they can go deliver or fix whatever problem is going on. So these are the teammates that can help make this really extremely passive for you. And if you can do that, then again, you can focus on the main thing, your family, your job, your passions, your hobbies, and let this thing run itself. And then what else helps it to really move itself? And we're talking to, you know, a bunch of technology minded people, right? So this is going to be something that should be pretty simple for you to pick up. But Hospitable, it used to be called Smart B&B. Now it's called Hospitable. And what it does is it automates all of your communication and tasks. So, well, I would say about 80% of your communication and 100% of your tasks. So, for example, if someone books your place and they instantly book it, they're going to get an automated message saying whatever you want it to say. And then your team, likely your cleaner and maybe even your maintenance man, will get a text saying, we have a guest checking in on this day. Here's your job. And then you can set up as many reminders for those people, both the guests and the teammates, as you want, to be able to make that an automated process for you. So love Hospitable, took tons of time off of my team's back. Price Labs is one of my favorites. It's an automated pricing tool. So if you've ever gone and booked a hotel or booked an airline for a flight, you've noticed probably that, hey, if I book it on a Tuesday versus booking on a Friday, maybe it's a little bit cheaper. Or if I fly out on a Tuesday versus flying out on a Saturday or Sunday, it's cheaper. And the reason for that is because of supply and demand. It's an automatic formula that's being factored in based on your market and how many properties are available for people to book at any given time. And if there's a low inventory, then your price goes up. If there's a high inventory, your price goes down. And so this allows you to get high rates and high occupancy at the same time, and saves you hours and hours and hours of both research and manually changing pricing. And I'll just tell you the numbers. When I started using Price Labs, I started making about 15% more on my properties than when I did not have it. So totally worth it. And oh, by the way, I think it's like $20 per listing. It's a no-brainer. And then Turnover B&B, it automates your cleanings. It will pay your cleaners automatically, and it will remind them automatically of when they need to clean. And it also is a great place to hire cleaners. You can post bids, and those, you can post a job, and then cleaners can bid for that job. And then you can connect with them individually and start helping them, or they can start helping you to clean their places. So really, if you have the team and you're using the technology, this can be a really simple, not easy, I'm not going to say easy, but it can be a simple process. So this in itself, think about it for a second. If we own a property and we can automate this process and we're making, call it $2,000 per month, before we know it, we got 5 properties where we're still very, very little of our time is being used or taken. Then we now have that $10,000 of income. We can buy 5 properties, make $2,000 in each property, get them self-managed, hire the team, hire the technology, bring in the technology, and maybe be putting in 3 to 5 hours per week. And that's exactly where I was when I was at 5 properties, 3 to 5 hours a week. If that sounds encouraging to you, then I'd say go for it. But along with that, we want to continue to talk about some of the things that you'll need. So when we say the 5 units, like what I was just talking about, you really do have a business at that point, because there's a lot of moving parts. And so you need to start creating some systems. And what I love is having a virtual assistant. So what's really cool about this, if you aren't aware of this, there's virtual assistants in the Philippines and overseas that are dying to do jobs like this. And because of the exchange rate on the dollar, can do a really good job for a really low cost. Now for them, for example, a couple of my VAs get paid about $1,000 a month for about 40 hours of work a week. That doesn't sound like a lot. That sounds like highway robbery, possibly even sounds illegal, but it's not. What's great is because of the exchange of dollar, that is actually a ton of money for them over in the Philippines, where it's competitive with like even a pharmacist salary. So this is a great job for people to be able to do for you, so that you don't have to worry about guest communication during a certain set of hours. But then there's also systems that you need to bring in for your team, like turnovers and setups and pre-screening guests and 5-star customer service. There's a lot that goes into it, but if you can create those systems and hire a good team and use the technology, it can be a very passive business. So with that being said, again, we're kind of talking about owning the property, but what I want to just expose to you for a second here is Airbnb without owning the property. I'll talk about this for about 5 minutes, and then I want to open this up for questions for everyone, and I'll stop talking. But this was the light bulb moment for me. I was owning properties. I was looking at, okay, if I drop $100,000 and I can make $30,000 per year, man, I just made a 30% return on my investment year one. And that is phenomenal, right? But then I started seeing these other ways that people were doing it. And I found out that you could lease a property and then sublease it on Airbnb. And instead of $100,000, now you're invested like $15,000 and still making that same, maybe a couple $100 difference passive income. And I was like, oh my gosh, this, I can, instead of doing 5 of these, I could do 50 of these. And that's where I'm at today. And so the 3 ways that we're kind of looking at is owning, arbitrage, and co-hosting. I want to break that down for you for a second. So the traditional way is, again, owning the property, $60,000 down payment, $10,000 of closing costs, about a $10,000 of furnishing, and maybe about a 45-day escrow. So we're about $80,000 all in. Arbitrage, you rent the property and you sublease it on Airbnb with the permission of the owner. Typically, you're going to get about a $3,000 to $4,000 security deposit, first month's rent, maybe, and then the $10,000 furnishing. You're talking about 80% lower costs and a 1 to 2 week move-in. By the way, I realize some of you probably are in the Bay Area and you're like, $300,000 home, you're crazy. This is about a nationwide average, just so you know, nationwide average that we're looking at here. And then co-hosting, which is what I do, I literally do the hospitality management for the owners. I'm not a property manager, I'm a hospitality manager. And what that means is that I'm taking care of every single guest that comes in there. I'm taking care of every single turnover. I'm making it 100% passive for the owner. And that means that they have full financial responsibility to every dollar that's spent on that property. So I don't pay anything because I'm just managing the day-to-day activities. And typically I can do a 1 to 2 week setup and move-in time. So I'm not having to wait around for 45 to 60 day escrows. And just breaking this down even more in terms of a return on investment, I already mentioned to you, we look at owning 30% ROI, it's phenomenal. If we have someone that's, managing it for us, that's probably going to bring it down to somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 18%, but still really, really good. And you're going to make your money back. That says 5.5 years. That actually should say 3.5 years. Make your money back really quick. But what if you could get triple digit ROIs? We're talking 180% ROI on that same type of property. And now instead of netting $2,000 a month, we're netting about $1,500 a month, and divide that into a $10,000 investment. We're making our money back in 8 months, probably more like 6 or 7 months, with zero ongoing upkeep costs. And then, of course, co-hosting, like I mentioned, because there's no money invested, that's an infinite ROI from the first penny, and you're earning between 15 to 25% of the income produced. So if I, again, have a property, I make $5,000 for the owner, I take the first, if I have a 20% management fee, take the first 20% off of that $5,000 and send them the rest. So I make $1,000, they make their $4,000, everyone's happy. So my request, if this has been valuable for you today, we're going to open up obviously to questions, and I'll answer all the questions, but love for you to check out my site, all my tools, my courses, everything on there. It's all under the Airbnb tabs. And of course, that webinar that was right there on the front page that I mentioned, how to get your first Airbnb in the next 30 days without owning the property. If you decide to become a host, I would love if you could use my referral link. Costs you nothing. It helps me for sure. I can share that with Daniel, and I'm sure Daniel will probably be sending an email out to everyone with all these resources. And then check out, well, I guess I already said that, right? Check out my tools. So we don't even need to bring that one up. But if you decide to become the host, I definitely wish you the best of luck. If you do become a time, we'll be seeing you as well in there, because that is a great community of people that love helping each other and love to be able to see you in there and see you getting great results. But for now, I'll stop talking because I just did a bunch of that. I will open it up for questions, and I hope, like I mentioned, that this has been really educational. So,
All right, we've
here
got
we
a
go.
ton of we've got a ton of questions, and in fact, so
Cool.
many. I would love the. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We have so many questions. I would love for everybody on the call to go and give thumbs ups to the questions that they want to hear answered. So while you guys are doing that, we'll start off with Kelly, who submitted the first question. Do you have any issues with damage, theft, or complaints from neighbors?
Great question. So there's no such thing as not having any of those issues, but there is such a way as mitigating those issues. Year one, we had tons of those issues. We learned from our mistakes. And now what I can tell you is a great pre-screening process and great check-in instructions that are very clear with house rules and information to the guests will help to definitely mitigate those issues. Even we'll open up new Airbnbs all the time, and we think we've done a great job of sharing check-in instructions. And then we get a neighbor, saying, "Hey, we've had people knock on our door." The great thing is we can then send a picture now to all of our guests saying, "This is the house. Make sure you go to this house," and that helps with the process. But again, a really good pre-screening process, which is something that I teach in my courses in Mastermind. Just a couple like bullet points on that. Just make sure they read the house rules, that you're really, really specific in your house rules of what you're expecting, and that they confirm that before you accept them. That would be my best recommendation.
All right. Does Airbnb offer a fund to take care of any damage? Do they offer insurance?
Yeah, great question. So they have Air Cover, which is a glorified version of what used to be called the Airbnb Host Guarantee. Covers up to $1 million of damage and liability. I'll put some air quotes around that. I would get your own insurance as well. And again, if you can just do a really good job of pre-screening your guests, you should be able to get really high quality people in there so that you don't have those issues. But the most part, yeah, if let's just say a couch gets damaged, a leg breaks, submit a claim to Airbnb, show the proof. The guest has 72 hours to accept responsibility and pay it themselves. If not, Airbnb will go ahead and just charge the guest card on that. And then, of course, if it's a really high cost, then they're going to get some higher legal matters started with their insurance company.
Are there other short-term rental companies out there, for example, Verbo, and are some better than others? What sort of cuts do they each take?
Yeah, Airbnb is the most user friendly and the friendliest in terms of fees that I've found. The combination of the both. So And you know, when people talk about short-term rentals, what do they usually call them? They call them Airbnbs, kind of like Kleenex, right? It's actually a tissue, but Kleenex is the brand. So I would say having your place listed on Airbnb, learning how to use that first, then try out things like Verbo, Booking.com, Expedia. Furnished Finders is a really good one, especially if you have smaller places, because Furnished Finders is for nurses. So they come in, you know, all of our studios are always just packed with nurses. So that's a really good one too. And we also have a direct booking website, which you would have to develop on your own. But as you build up a business, that's a really good way to make sure that you're getting ownership of your guests, because you don't have to pay those fees to any other booking sites.
Um, what have you ever had any problems with HOAs in your Airbnbs?
Yes, I would try to stay away from HOAs if you own the property, for sure. Even if they allow it, I think an HOA can wake up one day and change their mind. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to do an HOA, have a midterm plan as well. What I mean by midterm is anything over 30 days. So we have long-term guests or long-term tenants. Oops, sorry. That would be my wife calling. We have long-term guests. Long-term tenants is over a year. Short-term guests is under 30 days. And then anything in between is a midterm. So nurses and traveling professionals, things like that, are going to be a great option for HOAs to probably stay within their CC&R regulations.
Um, I know you're not a tax advisor, but can you make any comments about the tax advantages of STRs?
Yeah, I can tell you that if you just go and Google tax advantages, short-term rentals, there's some great videos. But if you do have an average, if you own the property and you have an average of under 7 days per stay that is happening, then you get some great tax advantages. And I'm not, like you said, Daniel, I'm not a tax professional, and I don't want to sound dumb, because I will start sounding dumb if I try to sound like a tax professional. So Google that, but there's some great advantages of that.
And I'll try and schedule Mark Perlberg to come back in. He mentioned the tax advantages of it in a previous meeting, so we'll try and get him back to talk about that topic. Do you have to have an LLC to have an STR?
No, you don't have to have one. Again, I'm not a CPA or a lawyer, but I definitely think there's great advantages of having a property or a business in an LLC versus a sole proprietorship or personal.
All right. Is there a tool or analysis for properties to tell whether a property would qualify as being a good Airbnb property? Can you do this sort of analysis before you buy the property?
Yeah, so I actually did talk about that in the presentation, but I will share my screen once again and show you exactly what I'm referring to. Give me 1 second. So there's two different tools. First of all, let me share the screen again. And there we go. So AirDNA right here, if I just log into my account, there's a free version and then there's a paid version. Sometimes logging in takes a second. Give me 1 sec, but it's basically the MLS of Airbnb. And what it'll do, as soon as I'm able to get logged in here, it'll show you what properties in the area are making. So one of my students that I was talking to last night was looking at Catskill, New York. So these are all the properties in Catskill, and I can just hover my cursor over it and see, okay, this property was listed for 77 days last year and made an average of $636 per night. But if I have a paid version, then I can see what was its occupancy and what was its revenue. So, and it'll even give you the link to the property, so you can start going in and looking at it and saying, oh, is mine similar? Can I compare it to this? Or does this one have a bunch of amenities that I don't have in mine? So that can be a really, big time learning curve. So what I've done for you is I've created my Airbnb market eval kit. And so for just under $100, you could literally become an expert in analyzing Airbnb deals. by using and understanding how to use AirDNA and my profit calculator matched with it, which comes with that, and it'll show you how to use it.
Awesome. Do you need any extra coverage or different type of insurance if you do Airbnb versus a regular rental?
Yeah, I would definitely talk to an insurance agent about that. And short-term rental insurance is evolving and has gotten a lot better than it was even a year ago. If a majority of you that might be in California, Foremost, FOREMOST is a really good product that a lot of our owners use. But if you just even contact any retail broker like an Allstate Farmers, what's the other one? Farmers and I know there's another one, but there's if you just contact any of those retail ones, typically they're going to have some sort of short-term rental product that they can broker out.
All right. One person here is asking, did you mention a site that was for nurses?
Yes, furnishedfinder.com. It looks like Alex actually commented with that link
Okay.
in the chat as
right,
well.
just below. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. What else here? How do you find property owners that are willing to sublet their properties for Airbnb?
Yeah, great question. And I'll just do a really quick overview of this because that's a large training in itself, and I definitely cover that on my courses as well. But long story short, I would first of all start with your warm market of people that you might know that own houses, or if you know realtors, real estate investors, or property managers. And I would just ask them, hey, who do you know that owns a house that would like to make a little bit more money and have a really great tenant that they will never have to worry about evicting and never have to sign another lease? And that's because those are the problems that you're going to solve for an owner. So I would go to your warm market, ask those questions, and then I would also check out websites like Facebook Marketplace, Zillow, HotPads. If you're really desperate, you can check out Craigslist for places that are for rent. And you can find those owners that are listing their places for rent, start a conversation with them, just share all the advantages. I mean, there's a lot of advantages of renting to someone like me or like an Airbnb host versus a regular rental, especially in California with all the moratoriums. I can tell an owner, hey, I'm making money. As long as I'm making money at the house, I'm going to be a very happy customer and happy to pay you your rent. But because I'm going to be renting mostly to people that are coming through for a weekend or staying for 7 days or less, you don't have to worry about evictions. And so here I am, perfect solution for you. So that would be my recommendation: warm market, or one of those websites, along with a really good pitch to understand what the advantages are of doing this for owners.
And what about legal issues? How do you deal with those?
What about legal?
It's kind of vague.
Yeah, it's so vague. I don't even know where to
Or
start with that one.
maybe that could be a good follow-up to the last thing here in the chat. What's the worst experience you've had doing an SDR?
Oh man,
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Luckily, we haven't had a lot of really bad situations. It's really just been like, someone goes in there, has a party, and the neighbor calls the cops, and, we have to deal with that situation. But typically, I mean, I can count on maybe two hands how many times that's happened. And, maybe call it $1,000 to $1,500 of damage. You submit the claim and Airbnb pays it back. And man, I can't really think honestly of a worse question I can think, or of a worse situation than that. I can think of a lot of really funny stories, like most recently during New Year's, someone had like a blow up doll and they put it in a black garbage bag, wrapped it with some duct tape to make it look like a dead body in the back. So when our cleaner showed up, it freaked her out, and then she realized it was just a blow up doll. So it was kind of funny. But just like little silly things that just make you kind of tilt your head and raise your eyebrow. But there hasn't been a lot of really bad situations.
Here's a great question. As a property owner, if I want to sublease my property to an STR host, what should I be mindful of?
Um, Man, that's a great question. I would say you got to like who you're working with, number one. So even if they have the best business plan and they show you how they've been doing this with 40, 50 properties, if you don't like them and you don't think that you're going to get what you want out of them in regards to your goals, then that would be number one. Number two is I would say, everyone has to start somewhere. So, I had to start somewhere, and I really do believe that I'm the best fit for every single owner. So you might have to take a chance on someone just based on, that. I would get references of who they are as a person and references of who they have worked with maybe on similar projects, either real estate related, hospitality related, or project management. And then I would just make sure they understand what they're doing when it comes to insurance. I think that might be one of the bigger things too, just now that I'm thinking about it from your perspective. If you ask the question, what are we doing for insurance? And they kind of shrug their shoulders, that's probably not a good sign. But if they have a great insurance teammate or someone who's on their side that's going to help them to make sure that the insurance process is very smooth, then I think that's going to be a good fit for you. So those would be my top three things I would look at.
All right. What is the methodology to make a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ideal? And what are the exceptions to the 3-bedroom, 2-bath rule?
What is the methodology to make a
So I guess
3-bedroom, 2-bath ideal? I guess from a functionality standpoint, I can answer this. You've got the 3 queen beds, maybe 2 queen beds and a king bed. I would do a sleeper sofa, and I would do an air mattress, or maybe 2 sleeper sofas, so that you can get to that 10-person night stay. And just make sure you get all the necessary amenities, really great decor, and then, like I mentioned, professional photos. Is there a sweet spot is that the sweet spot to make money? And then, yeah, like I said, it is a pretty good sweet spot. But that's where knowing your market as well makes a big difference, because I could go to a market, like, for example, I really like Cayucas, California. I go there all the time. Most of those places are 1 bedrooms, and it works. Big 3 bedrooms maybe don't work as well there. I don't know until I look at the data. And same thing for, if I say, well, hey, the more bedrooms, the better, right? Well, that might work in a vacation area, but in a place like, for example, where I'm at in Fresno, there's not a ton of large groups coming through. There's a lot of, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom type of groups coming through. So knowing the numbers really is, and doing the research is where you need to be.
Do you have a favorite expense tracker?
I don't. I just use I have an accountant, so my accountant does all of that. And so I don't have really a system for that. And I recommend most people don't try to do those things themselves. Just hire a good bookkeeper or an accountant.
How do you budget for furniture and decor, and how do you know what you need to buy?
Yeah, I mean, and what I know about owners is owners do a really good job of overspending on properties, thinking they need to have the best. And sometimes it pays off, but sometimes there's that like ceiling, right? You can buy the $10,000 couch, but does that add enough to your nightly rate to really make a difference? So stay simple with it. Amazon, Wayfair, Home Goods, Target, and Walmart, to be honest, are really great. Michael's, there's a lot of these places, you don't have to go to the Ashley Furniture or even the Bob's Discount, which sounds like a great option. Most of the time is still more expensive than a lot of these other places. So I would definitely recommend, like, if you're in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and you're furnishing it yourself, a typical budget would be about $8,000. And if you want to do it really nice, $10,000 to $12,000. And if you need to save money, you could probably get away doing it for $6,000.
Is it better to find a Airbnb property manager or manage it yourself?
I can't answer that question for you because I don't know what your goals are.
Yeah.
Financially, it's better to do it yourself. But if you want to save a bunch of time and, well, let me put an asterisk on that because I talked about that earlier, right? Financially, it's going to be better if you do it yourself if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it's not going to be better for yourself. Get someone who knows what they're doing and they'll make you more money and they'll make it passive for you. But if you know what you're doing, then the question becomes, well, do you have the time in the beginning to learn the processes? And if you don't, then I would just go straight to a manager. And
sorry,
nope,
I'm back. I'm going to jump down to the question that says, do you need to have a license from a city in order to run an Airbnb?
In order to run an Airbnb, you want to check with your city. Do the research just by Googling your city short-term rental ordinance. So if you're in San Jose, California, short-term rental ordinance. And what you'll find is it'll probably direct you to the city, the government website, and you can then see what defines a short-term rental and is it allowed? And if it is allowed, are there some regulations along with it? Typically, it'll show you the permitting process on that website as well.
All right. And are there any instances where you struggled to break even?
Yeah, I mean, there's good deals and there's bad deals. So like I have a lot of properties that I didn't think would do that well and they kill. And then there's properties that I thought would kill and just do average. So that's what's great about really focusing on doing multiples of these and having multiple exit strategies if you own the property is really key too. But that's also why it's great, right? If you're looking to own a property and you're not sure if it's going to work, what a great low risk way to go and get an arbitrage deal and see what you would make. And then you have that avatar property of, okay, this worked. Now let's go ahead and buy a property that looks and feels just like this one. And I'll already know what I'm going to make. So, it's just like anything investing, right? You buy some good Bitcoin at the right time. You buy some bad Bitcoin at the wrong time. So that's kind of the way it works.
And that leads us right into Glenn's question here, where he just says exit strategies ? And we'll make that the last question.
Exit strategies. I mean, the way I look at the exit strategies is twofold. The strategy of actually doing the business and the exit strategy of actually selling the business. So yeah, I mean, as long as you put this in an LLC, if you're doing it without owning the property, you sign contracts, sign leases, put them all in LLCs, and you basically have a sellable business. I have a really good friend of mine who lives in Australia, built up 130 short-term rental portfolio and was able to sell the business right before COVID for millions of dollars on properties that she didn't even own. Pretty cool.
All right, everybody. Can you take yourselves off mute and say thank you to Kyle for coming in?
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you,
Was
Kyle.
awesome.
Appreciate it, Kyle.
Thank you,
Thank
Kyle.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
Man, Kyle, thanks for coming in. I always love hearing from you.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.